Are you a part of a trucking company looking to improve your recruitment and retention? You're in the right place. Welcome to Recruit and Retain Trucking Edition with your host, Chad Hendricks.
Welcome to another episode of Recruit and Retain Trucking Edition. I'm your host, Chad Hendricks. Today, we're going to be talking a little golf, the drive for show, putt for dough. What I really want to talk about is the long game and the short game of driver recruitment. Now, some will say that there isn't a driver shortage because it's a retention problem. And the carriers with single-digit turnover that still have a recruiting problem believe it's a driver shortage issue. As I write this, I'm working with 12 carriers with turnover under 25% right now. They aren't working with us because their trucks are full. Even for them, recruitment is still a problem. And they want to look towards the long term as well. One problem that a lot of trucking companies have is that they don't feel they have the bandwidth in either budget or time to think about the long game of driver recruitment. I've yet to find anyone who expects driver recruitment to get easier, which tells me that everyone needs to think about a new long-term strategy. If you're not innovating, you intuitively know what's going to happen. It doesn't take a scientist to understand what happens to those that don't change over time for the better. With golf, I was looking back at the record for the long drive championships in golf. In 1980, a 295-yard drive won the competition. Look, I have amateur friends that play once a week that can hit further than that now. In 2022, the long drive champion hit it 426 yards. The point is that it's going to get harder to win. Over time, it always does. You wouldn't be amazed at hitting a 295-yard drive any longer in 2022, 2023. It takes different training, different execution, different equipment. I wonder what it would look like if you gave the 2022 champion a golf club from 1980 and see what kind of difference that makes. It's like using the newspaper ad to find truck drivers still. Now, some people have optimism and they'll point out, like, we're starting to see a significant increase in the number of high school graduates going into apprenticeships. The apprenticeships are up like 50%, and colleges are actually seeing like a drop of 50% in enrollment. That's good news for the trades and everything. But let's just assume we use some common sense when it comes to trucking. Do you see those apprentices going into trucking? Well, no. I mean, age, for one, is a factor in getting your CDL. You got to be older. But also the lifestyle is still a factor. There are more home daily positions than there was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, et cetera, because the expectations of workers are changing, right? The expectations of fathers and mothers and the level of involvement in their kids' lives has changed. So if you want to say we've been in a tight labor market since 2003, or you want to say it's a driver shortage, or you want to say there's no shortage, it's just a shortage of quality drivers, I actually don't really care about having to categorize the entire industry, because I see companies with no issue filling their trucks, and I see companies with huge problems filling their trucks. In both of those cases, some of those are both low turnover companies. So what is the long-term strategy? And honestly, so far, I've yet to hear a single leader describe to me in detail what their long game is going to be in trucking. Usually it's a hope and pray plan, or we're going to figure it out as we go. And of course, there's something special with innovating, figuring it out, toughing it out, being resilient, and just figuring it out as you go. But what if you didn't have to just hope for results, or only believe in your team to be more innovative than other companies, right? What if your concern that more people aren't going to enter the industry doesn't have to be as big of a concern? You can hedge your bets on a sure way to get drivers, and then you can continue to innovate. So this is where our long-term strategy comes into place for driver recruitment. To all the great carriers out there, I want to let you know about a new free job board. Yes, I said free. At Driver Outcomes, we're changing the industry for the better. We've created a free job board exclusively for carriers that have turnover rates of under 40%. So if that fits your company, we'd love to have you on board. We believe that low turnover rates mean you're making the right kind of business decisions that are turning the industry into a better place for drivers, And so because of this, we want to help you grow and give you more influence in the industry than the typical churn and burn carriers who really, they just have insane budgets on recruiting drivers, and that's their business strategy. I want you to head over to driveroutcomesjobs.com and submit your information to get started. We'll walk you through the process of verifying your turnover rates and get you on the free job board right away. That's driveroutcomesjobs.com. The long-term strategy is this. Our team's going to look for drivers with 10 years of experience or more. The drivers will speak English, which might give you a hint there. They'll sign a contract to stay on with you for a minimum of 3 years. There's no upfront costs, and you pay a weekly fee for those 3 years, but if the driver quits or has to be terminated, then the weekly fee stops. I'm mentioning the weekly fee because that obviously has got to be low enough that you're still making a profit in each week, that it wouldn't make sense otherwise. But what that means is even on day one of working in this type of program, you're profitable. We handle all the marketing, the recruitment, the vetting, the travel. That's it. So here it is. There are drivers in other countries that want to want to put in the miles every week. They want to come to the US. They want to bring their families. And there are employment-based visas that let that happen. They become permanent legal residents. They get their green card. So this is not a temporary visa. Right now, how we have it set up, there are no upfront costs. And the only costs are when the driver is actually on your payroll. So we did this to take away pretty much all the financial risk to the company because everybody was concerned about immigration. Everybody's also concerned about turnover, what happens when they come over, right? So we essentially put in zero risk. That's how it's set up. And to be honest with you, this visa program, it's still barely used. There were less than 1,000 truck drivers brought in on this visa in 2019 and like less than 100 every single year pre-2016. So this is new. Think of this as your opportunity to jump on social media marketing before everyone else did. This is the same situation. Now, traditionally, this visa just hasn't been used, right? So this is unique. It's a new way to hire. And you aren't competing for the same leads as your competitor. That's a huge one right there, right? When you get a lead, when you get the driver file and you get to actually interview them, they're not interviewing with 5 other companies, right? So you get to really understand what's going on here. So with no upfront risk financially, there are really only 2 reasons you wouldn't do this. Either you don't believe you have open trucks in the future, or you aren't running a profitable business. You don't have profitable contracts. That's the only way that it doesn't work out. That's the long game. But in this case, the long game is almost the same strategy that we do in the short game. So while we're getting through all the government processes with the immigration piece, we want to find existing drivers now. Now that requires marketing. And the question is always whether you've spent marketing dollars that didn't result in anything in the past. I've heard that story a lot of times, right? Smaller companies, mid-sized companies, they'll spend 50 grand, 100 grand and not really get enough results. I was told by one person, the president of the company, that it feels like gambling, hoping each month that your recruiting team hires enough people after we spend 15 grand. That does feel hard. And then the issue does become retention. Usually half of everyone's turnover is in the first 90 days of driver's employment. So really, even if you're hiring 7 to 10 drivers for 15 grand, your turnover rate's 50%, you're going to lose some drivers in there. Just shoots your cost per hire up dramatically if you really paid attention to turnover, which, let's be honest, most recruiting departments don't pay attention to that. They only care about the cost per hire. As long as they get the hire, that's getting into their cost per hire metrics. But really, we want to be looking at profit. So it's this never-ending game of playing catching up with your turnover, catching up to fill an empty truck. It's just sitting, and it's frustrating. So we have to think about the short term because that is how we are going to make money now. The whole idea, drive for show, that's the long term, putt for dough. So quick check for you. Who on your team actually has expertise in marketing? Most companies have zero marketing people on staff. Now, what I found is that trucking just thinks marketing is a no skill position and that anyone with a social media account could fill it. Are you really willing to give someone thousands, tens of thousands of dollars that doesn't have any kind of expertise? To me, it was always like saying marketing can be done by anyone is like saying a pizza franchise could run a trucking company, right? Pizza places, they deliver pizzas from point A to point B every day over and over again. They do it really efficiently. But we know that's not the same as running a trucking company. That's how it is. So for your putting game of marketing, what I want to do with this structure is I want to take your PGA level green, where there's a ton of reading the greens and how you can figure it out. And oh my gosh, if I hit it too hard or not enough, it's just going to be a problem. I want to replace that with a mini golf course. I feel like our marketing system is like the hole in which you just have to hit the golf ball to the end. So it goes into this little pipe, and that pipe is pointed right at the hole for a hole in one, right? And how I talk about this, right? There's no upfront marketing cost. In fact, I would say there's no marketing cost really at all. We find the driver, we interview the drivers, we vet the drivers, we get the application filled out, we send to your recruiters for a final interview, and we get paid a weekly fee after the fact. And if the driver quits, it's terminated, or they last 2 years, the weekly fee goes away. Once again, you are profitable the entire time because there is no big spend dollar amount at the start that you have to dig your hole out of. I should also mention that our overall turnover amongst all the drivers that we have placed is around 20% right now. So find me another marketing team that is placing drivers and maintaining a 20% turnover rate. I would have a hard time thinking that anybody's really going to come up with that. This is the goal, right? We want to create a complete game plan. We want to cover both the long-term and the short-term strategy. And everyone is incentivized towards retention. Our company needs retention to make any kind of money and to survive. You're profitable on day one. You only get more profitable if there's retention. You get a higher probability of a higher quality driver because our turnover rates are showing really low right now. And the driver has a much higher chance of finding a company that the driver wants to stay with. We're proving all of those. So instead of there being like just one grand champion of this Masters tournament, it's like we're all getting green jackets. So if you have any interest in thinking about this from a long-term and a short-term strategy, reach out to us, reach out to our team. We're extremely excited about working with the best companies in the industry. And so looking for those companies that really fit. If you have any questions, reach out. Thank you so much. Stay safe on the road.
Thanks so much for listening to Recruit and Retain Trucking Edition with your host, Chad Hendricks. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit brandoutcomes.com/podcasts. We'll catch you next time.